Hello and welcome to Maastricht University Live, a second edition on the coronavirus, and this time specifically focused on psychology and the anxiety and stress that students may experience because of the whole different measurements that we've now taken as a university. So today I'm joined by a few people on a Google Hangout, which means that I'm wearing an earbud so I can hear them. And I'm also joined by two people here live. Let's introduce them first. Noshka, could you introduce yourself?
I'm Inagaz Osama. I am in my third year of my bachelor and I'm studying psychology as well.
All right, and then Frank Peters.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Frank Peters. I'm a psychiatrist and psychotherapist and working as a professor of clinical psychology at the Faculty of Psychology and Neuroscience here in Maastricht.
All right, and then online I'm joined by Koen Schurers, I think.
That is correct, yes. My name is Koen Schuurs. I'm a professor of psychiatry at the Faculty of Medicine.
All right, and then the other one is Lisbeth Muha, I think. Could you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Lisbeth Muha. I'm the project leader of student well-being and one of the UM psychologists at the Student Services Center.
Thank you very much. All right, so we're joined by all these people that are doing psychology specifically. That means that our discussion will also focus a little bit more on the psychology section and not so much on policy, politics, and medicine. So keep that in mind. If you have questions for us during this live stream, make sure that they are a bit more in the direction of psychology. Thank you very much. And then we will go to a video with Skype interviews with students.
Hello everyone, I'm Muzna and this is Steph.
Hi.
And we're here in the self-quarantine. We were supposed to take interviews on the street and ask people how they're dealing with the quarantine and the coronavirus period, but we decided that it's a better idea to get a few students and have them help us out with some of the questions that we had for them. So we're gonna start with a Skype interview.
So we're now basically in self-quarantine because of the university close, or at least stopping all physical activities in the university buildings. And that's why we have a few questions for you. So Musna, could you start?
So I'm gonna start with the first question. How do you experience self-imposed quarantine?
Yeah, I have to say it's very strange and unlike anything I've ever experienced. I'm sure it's the same for all of us.
Well, I find myself to be a little conflicted about this entire self-imposed quarantine because, as it turns out, outside right now is very sunny and it's actually uncharacteristically beautiful. And while we were working and going to school and there was no coronavirus, it was raining and it was cloudy and our overall motivation was down. But now suddenly the sun came out and now we are in a self-imposed quarantine. But it is for health reasons, so it does get a pass.
So it's day one for me so far. I went home yesterday and we actually went to the country house. So it's pretty nice actually because we have a lot of space and there's not a lot of things happening around us here. So it's nice. I actually just like set up a nice study spot in my room. So it's nice. Like I'm kind of like slowing down a bit and trying to get into a study routine for this first day.
So I am from Italy and my parents have been in quarantine now for 10 days. I kind of already know what to expect from this whole experience, but experiencing for myself, it was a bit different because I was in this apartment by myself, you know, so it's different than when you're sharing it with someone else. Yeah, it was really, I think it was strange at the beginning because I knew what like why I should be scared and why I should stay at home. But I felt like a lot of people weren't staying at home, which for me felt like, okay, I'm really putting my best to get through this quarantine, but a lot of people aren't. So is this even gonna help, you know?
So what measures have you taken to protect yourself?
When everyone started going to the supermarket, I've tried to avoid that. And actually, a couple of days before that, when they announced that everything was gonna close down or limit their hours and so on, I went to the supermarket myself, and I've been just trying to stay at home as much as I can. I am now with my flatmates, so yeah, we try to like just stay home, work out at home, watch movies or paint, you know, so just get distracted so we're not tempted to get outside.
I've been washing my hands every time I getting into like a new room or a new like space when I was able to actually walk to places, but that's not the case anymore. But washing my hands very frequently, washing my clothes, and just avoiding contact with people, like just not touching them too often.
Yeah, mainly staying at home as much as possible, as is advised as well. And yeah, currently only going outside to do groceries or just having a walk, every now and then to get some fresh air, and running, what I do mainly for sports. But also just washing my hands multiple times a day. And yeah, pretty much the things that are being advised by the authorities as well.
I guess I do things that normally I wouldn't do as often. For instance, like washing my hands, washing my clothes very often. If I have to go out for a very necessary kind of thing, I usually make it very brief, and then I come back home and then I wash my hands again and use sanitizer and all that. So it's the little things that eventually add up.
How has this affected your mood day to day?
It's not the virus that makes me feel very uneasy. It's more likely, this very volatile attitude among the people.
It affected my mood in the sense that it's a lot of uncertainty and everything is changing really quickly. So I just didn't expect that I would have to come home in one day. It's a bit hard to adjust to the online environment to study. And especially with exams next week, so it's a bit like you're not really focused. But I think once you find the spot where you're actually gonna settle down for a while, it's actually, I don't know, it calms you down a bit. But the uncertainty is really what's like affecting my mood, like not knowing when I'll go back to uni, and I also would like to have my graduation, which is probably not gonna happen. So it's just not knowing when things will go back to normal that is a bit scary, I think.
At the beginning, it was quite tough because I did want to go back home. I didn't want to stay in the Netherlands because I just wanted to be with my family. But yeah, as you know, in Italy, everything is closed down and it's hard to get into Italy. So now, at the beginning, it was hard. My mood was quite low, but now it's getting back to normal. I think as much as you can. This morning, I had a facilitation online, so a presentation. And so seeing my classmates and seeing my professor as well kind of gave me this idea of like, everyone is in this as well. It's not just me and my flatmates, but yeah. So I think it's getting quite even normal now. Yes.
So, what advice would you give your fellow students going through the situation?
Don't stay in your pajama pants all day long working at home, but actually put on, actual clothes that you would put on a normal day to uni or to work. That's, at least one thing that can motivate you to continue working at home instead of just getting this lazy Sunday type of feeling.
To respect the quarantine, obviously, and not to throw, the house parties and make gatherings.
Yeah, I think that everyone should really listen to what the authorities say, stay informed, trying to learn as much as you can about, what hygiene conditions we should keep in mind, like washing your hands, and try to not be tempted to go and see your friends or do sports outside. Try to stay inside as much as you can, although this sounds quite hard because these days have been beautiful and sunny in the Netherlands these past days. It's incredible. It's usually raining, and this past 2 or 3 days have been sunny.
I think you shouldn't stay too much on social media because it can get very stressful and you can just kind of stay an hour on your phone looking at the news. And there's a lot to see there, but there's also a lot of fake news. So also for your mental health, it's good to just like maybe look like an hour, specifically look at the news and then just like completely put your phone away. And it's important, I think, to like make your space cozy and nice for you to like just hang out there. And just, I don't know, create like a little routine at home with sports, studying, and like fun times together to have a nice quarantine, I guess.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Good luck.
So we've just seen a video of a few interviews with students online where we talked about different things, different measures that have been taken by them. And so maybe a few questions of those interviews we can also ask to the panel that we have at the moment. So how do you experience self-imposed quarantine, maybe?
I think it's quite interesting because it's given me the chance to sort of restructure my day-to-day activities. It's given me a chance to sort of reevaluate how I spend my time as an individual, because you don't really realize when you're running back and forth from university to classes, how much time is wasted in that sense. And now I have more time for myself. I have more time to pick up new hobbies, more time to call back my family back in Dubai. So it's been an interesting shift. So.
Yeah, thank you. Frank, have you experienced anything differently now?
Yes, of course, like everybody else, I need to adapt to these changing circumstances. So although I have physical distance from people, I have far more social connectedness. I'm old, but I'm apping more than ever, and Zooming and Skyping with colleagues, calling people, so older friends, to see if they're fine and if I can do something. And the other thing is, like what you said, I need to think about how I'm going to structure my day and my work. And because, the whole structure of going to the university, going to like a band rehearsal, I play music, we skipped that one. So I need some time to structure my days and to adapt to this situation. But so far I'm fine.
Cool. Lisbeth, do you have any changes because of this whole situation?
Well, I have two younger kids. They're 3 and 6 years old, so they're all the time at home. My husband is at home, so it is adjusting. We have a schedule for the kids to follow school here at home a little bit, but we just have to make sure that we get the day structured. I have to fit in work, so it's a challenge. But I like it, and we can't do different than just see if we can make that challenge work. So we try to keep a positive outlook on things and structure everything as much as we can.
Cool. And Koen, how about you?
Well, there's been, let's say, quite a big effect in my situation, since normally I was supposed to be in the United States right now. I was supposed to go there for a number of months on a sabbatical. But due to this corona crisis, I decided to come back before all borders closed, and I just got out of the country just on time. So I arrived at Brussels airport a few hours ago, and I'm home now. So I'm still adjusting a little bit to my new situation.
Okay. So for those that are watching at the moment, if you have any questions for the professionals here or for the panel, don't hesitate to ask them. We will try to answer them, and we may even answer some of them here on the live stream itself. So going into how the coronavirus has impacted the daily life of people, what advice would you have for those currently doing their best to stay in their student rooms, houses, studios, etc.? What concrete tips would you have for them to stay a little bit sane, like creative? Maybe start with you, Frank?
Yes. Well, we know that structure in our daily lives, structure is very important. So try to set up a good routine which is close to the routine that you had before we had this time. So like go to bed at a normal time, get up in the morning at a normal time, get dressed, take a shower, have a decent breakfast. Another important thing is just, I think, make a planning for the day. I'm trying to do that myself with my work, so everything is a bit disrupted, so my routines are disrupted. So I try to set up a new routine in terms of working, having a break, having a lunch, going out for a short stroll, and set goals for the day. So this and that I would like to do today, and then it's nice because when you're at the end of the day, then I have something to look back upon and think, okay, I was able to do that today. So, like that.
Yeah. So maybe for Koen or someone on the live stream, so Maya on YouTube asks, how are you all dealing with spending so much time on a computer? Maybe that's an interesting one to answer. Koen?
I didn't get that, sorry.
So how are you dealing with spending so much time on your computer now that everything is online?
And you asked this question to me because?
Because you're now on the live stream and someone on the feed asks about this question, so that's why.
Oh, okay. I was under the impression that my expertise is fear and anxiety, so I'm prepared to ask these kind of questions. I'm not really
All right.
into computer
Oh no, no, no
usage.
worries. Then we'll just. I mean, someone else maybe has an answer
I
to that.
mean, I think as a student, you spend so much of your time on your computer writing notes, making agendas, watching YouTube, Netflix, whatever. I do think, at least for students, there hasn't been a drastic change with how much time we spend on the laptops. I feel like a lot of students are maybe having a hard time finding the balance between whether it is creative or productive time on your computer, or are you wasting your time. Because what I've also seen within the student community is that because of this drastic change from going to university every single day or every other day to no classes at all and all classes being online, students feel like they've lost structure. And I think it's very important to remind everyone that these changes take time to adapt, and that it's okay if you feel a little lost, that these feelings are valid, to feel lost and to feel like there's too much going on, but to also slowly get back into your normal. It's step by step. It's all a process. Take it one step at a time and start with small goals. Don't set obnoxiously large goals like I'm going to finish 20 lectures today and I'm going to do this and that. It's more about I'm going to do this one thing today and I'm going to cook this nice meal with whatever.
Yeah.
So, you
Yeah.
know, to take time off from the computer is very important.
That actually is a very nice way to go into the next one, because most of the gyms are now closed, of course, so there's no more physical activity you can do in those spaces. So how would you fix that in a different way? I don't know if anyone has answers to that.
Home workouts.
Well, personally, I go running, so that's because okay, we still can go outside. But you can do exercises, of course, in your house. Some people might be able to do some spinning or rope jumping, things like that. People do that. And I'm sure online there will be all kinds of resources where you can find some courses in exercises that you could do. And again, I think it's important to make plans and structure your day. So I totally agree with what you said is set goals, but set realistic goals. Work for an hour and okay, take a break after an hour. Not spending all the time behind the board and getting all these muscle problems. Have a coffee or a tea, and then resume working or do some exercise. But give structure to your day. Don't spend day like idling, sitting and thinking and ruminating and procrastinating about the things that you think you should do. Just set realistic goals.
Okay, so should we have then still social gatherings? Like, can we not meet in smaller groups of people? Like what we're doing now, is 3 people is still fine. Is that still okay? Or should we say like, let's just social distance ourselves completely?
I feel like one thing that I've heard recently from a lot of the students is that there's a slight confusion between social distancing and social isolation. So social isolation, I would not recommend that at all, especially at times where everyone is struggling so much with their anxiety and stress with the changes that have happened. I think it's important to stay connected, especially nowadays with all the different kind of social media platforms that we have. Make use of them. Call your friends, call your family, make time to do that. Those are still social gatherings. But meeting up with a friend, you know, if you can keep your 1 meter distance, I don't see any harm in that. I don't see, if you're being safe, if you're mindful of what you're doing, I don't think it's a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So we've also, because we talked a little bit before about isolation buddies, could you maybe explain a little bit more? Like,
well, I think we hear things about physical distancing, but I think we should increase social connectedness, and there are so many possibilities to do that. So of course you can set up meetings with friends because we have all these social media. You can use that. Last night we had an appointment with friends, and we decided to do it with the apps. So and with FaceTime, which worked nicely, and we had contact. One of the other things, when you're alone, and you know another student that is alone, you might think about moving in with each other. I told you this
Yeah.
in the street where I live. There was a student house. One of the students is alone. She knows another student who is alone, and they decided to team up and move in together and live together for a while. So not to be alone, not to be lonely, which is of course very wise to do if you know somebody. You're in the same boat.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Also, I feel like if you, like, especially in circumstances like that, when it's just you and this other person, if you're lucky enough and this person is also studying with you, you can start working together. You can provide structure for each other. I definitely believe that if you work with someone else and you're, especially in these challenging times, you can actually be more productive, you can provide more structure, and you don't feel as alone. And I feel like people do feel very alone right now because you're not going out as much, everyone's staying at home, no classes, no university, the face-to-face interactions being missed. If you have your little isolation buddy, I think that's, and then you can structure your days together, cook together, exercise together, pick up a new hobby together. These are all little things that make the experience a little bit like
Bearable.
better and bearable.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I told you about the example in offices where people usually meet like 11 o'clock at the coffee machine and then chit-chat about things. And people started setting up like Zoom or Skype meetings, the coffee break. How is everybody doing? How is work? How things are going? And of course, students, you could do that together. You know people, and you can say, shall we have a coffee break at 11? So try to stay in contact and set up these alternative ways of connecting with each other.
Yeah. Thank you.
It's there.
Yeah. So for the calling guests, I have also a few questions. So what is your broad impression on how people are dealing with the crisis psychologically? Was a question that was asked. I don't know who can answer this one. Cool.
Yeah, I could say something about that if you like.
Okay.
But I think in general, I think people are dealing quite well. The way I see it, I think you see an impetus in, let's say, in social responsible behavior. And as you can hear from the examples that have been given amongst you as well, I think there's been kind of an increase in social awareness and I think that's in general the people how people react here. I think is in a really positive way. So I see it as a sort of a positive side effect of this crisis.
Yeah. Lisbeth, do you maybe have any additional things to that?
I totally agree. Of course, we also see things happening here. I'm from Belgium, so the regulations are a bit more strict. But we see things happening like hoarding, but we also see people helping out other people and a lot more social engagement, even be it online. So we do see a lot of people stepping up and also using different things. Like when you're at home and you feel a bit anxious, a lot of people are meditating at the moment. And I think that's a really good evolution, that you kind of are forced in a direction now that you wouldn't look at. So you have to be more creative. And I think that's a very good evolution that we see as a positive side effect of everything that's going on.
Yeah. So we've just talked about like creativity and finding new ways of doing things. Maybe we can fill in a bit like how to go in a creative direction with your days, basically. Just 1 second before we do that, Lisbeth and Koen, if you want to chime in with a question, don't hesitate to wait for me to ask something. Just say something. We will hear it then. So, but then maybe we can go back to like, what can we do to make our days a bit more creative?
Yeah.
You got examples?
Yeah, I think at times like this, especially when you are alone, call friends and family back home. I do know a lot of, like, I think in Maastricht we have such an international community. Call home, talk to your friends, ask how they're doing. It's also very interesting to know how other people are coping with their day-to-day structures, and how, like, you can learn from others as well in circumstances like this. Picking up a new hobby, experimenting, opening yourself up to something you're not used to. And I think right nowadays, like, the days are generally getting longer as well as summer is approaching, so you have more time in your day as well. So it is, I think a lot of people are being held back because they don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And I feel like because people don't know what's going on, people are not opening up to experimentation with their day. I think as things slowly calm down, people will start forming their own structures and will feel more comfortable with experimenting as well. So,
if I may,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, what we very often say during day-to-day life, we say, I don't have time to do this, or I would love to start knitting, or love to learn a new language, but I don't have time to do this. So these are the things, if you think about it in a creative way, are the things that you can pick up right now and think of doing it at the time. So you have way more time now than you would have had before. So everything that you said, hey, I would love to read that book. Well, now's the time to pick up that book and start reading it. And I also think it's really nice if you know that your brain needs 3 to 5 weeks to create new habits. Also at this moment, if you start something new, even if it's just a morning routine that you start, or do a yoga exercise every day, or any new routine or new habit that you start at the moment, in 5 weeks, it's a habit. So if you can think in a creative way about, oh, what have I always wanted to do but never found the time for, now is the moment to start it.
Yeah. So a question from the chat at the moment, which also leads a little bit into what I was going to ask next, is what would you suggest people to do what if you're dealing with anxiety relating to a loved one being at risk? How can we deal with this anxiety?
Well, this is a very particular situation because there is a very real risk, but it's very difficult to estimate how big this risk precisely is. And that causes a lot of uncertainty and a conflicting behavior. One is behavior aimed at getting as much information as possible about this putative threat. That's one thing. So kind of approaching this behavior, like looking up information on the internet, talking about it with people, looking at all kinds of social media sources. And on the other hand, of course, this information is meant to get away as far as possible from this threat of not being ultimately not being infected, and protecting the people around you of being infected. So this is kind of conflicting. This is a tendency to avoid and a tendency to approach this danger. And this feeling of uncertainty is exactly what anxiety is, and that's why it's so constant, because we have these are viruses, and it's a new virus, so there's more uncertainty. There's less known than, for example, with classical flu. The epidemiology is a bit different. The clinical picture is a little bit different. The death rate is higher. So there's lots of uncertainties going on. So what I would advise in this case is to do look for information, but stick to limited sources of high quality. So I would go just for, let's say, sources of information with kind of a quality stamp on it, like government sources, Agency of Epidemiology, national-wide, these things. And I would try to avoid, let's say, more popular media, or even tweets and stuff like that, because these tend to run away with all kinds of panicky stories, which are basically impossible to check whether they are correct or not, and they only increase anxiety and uncertainty, and they don't provide any useful information to go on. So if there's any advice, limit your time searching on information on the virus, and stick to, let's say, the good sources. That would be my advice.
So that's so what we've just listened to was just like building resilience towards anxiety and stress is by not going on Facebook and Twitter to find your news, but stick to only the necessity sources like the government website and government debates. Is that,
Exactly.
I think, yeah. Is there? I think we can all agree with that here.
Yeah,
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
I feel like the news does sometimes exaggerate. They can make everything quite flashy, quite dramatic, and I feel like sometimes just sticking to an old article online or something that's more sort of focused on what's going on rather than exaggerating a situation also helps with formulating and directing your thoughts properly. Because when you're panicking, all you're doing is basically clustering different forms of information and thinking this problem is so much bigger than I can imagine. And if you have just one specific source of information rather than multiple different sources, you already reduce your anxiety like that as well. That's what I believe
Yeah.
that could help.
Yeah, and one of the other things I think, so find a source that's reliable,
Mhm.
like national government things. The university website is, I think, very good in giving these updates.
Yeah.
And one of the other things I think is wise is don't go on the web for searching for news all day. Also structure doing that. So don't check your mail all the time, just structure your day. And when you want news, just do that like in the morning and the end of the day, and that's it. And just go to the things you want to do. And
Yeah.
don't seek these distractions. That's not good.
Yeah, that's good advice, I would say. Yeah. And question from the chat was, will the UM offer online psychology classes? Lisbeth, maybe you know more about this?
Well, as for now, all the appointments that students have or will have in the future with a UM psychologist will take place online through Skype or Zoom. So if you want to make an appointment, an individual appointment is still possible on the webpage of the UM psychologist. But we're also working really hard on collecting information and making our existing offer online, so that we'll try to start offering it as of next week. So students can follow the Corona update. Normally there will be a link provided, and the social media of of the SSC and of the Wellbeing Movement. If you follow these, you'll be up to date. So we're working really hard with the team. We're having a lot of Zoom sessions, so we're also getting used to this new way of working, and we're converting our existing offer into online offer for students.
Okay, thank you. Another question from the chat was about mindfulness online. Are there any good sources for this and that you could recommend, basically? So mindfulness tools online. Do we have any that would be useful for these? Sorry. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry. Yeah. Mindfulness online. Yes. There are a lot of apps at the moment, like for example, Calm.com, Headspace. They offer free online modules at the moment, so online sessions that you can follow. But also, yesterday we piloted our first online meditation session, and it was very successful. Students really appreciated it. So we're going to offer every Wednesday from 10 to 11. As of next week, we're going to offer the online meditation session. And we'll also post that online. So normally Friday or Monday, you'll know more about it. So I also suggest that you go online and check out which apps there are and which ones offer free meditation sessions. You can find plenty.
All right, thank you. I think one final question for especially the people that are now online is, how can we help others in dealing with anxiety or stress in these times?
Well, the answer is simple, I think, but it's already been given. That is, provide social contact, albeit in a virtual way. So not physically close, but look people up that you know. Also, uncalled for, just reach out to people. I think that's the best advice that you can give anyone. Having social contact, even if it's virtual via, images, connections such as these, is very helpful, and is very stress and anxiety reducing.
Okay. So maybe more of a personal question for everyone here at the panel is just, or the professors maybe. So a few friends of mine now really returned back home. So a friend of mine went back to Poland, another one back to Austria, France. And I do these things, like I listen, as you said, we go online and we have like these WhatsApp meetings and we do things, but they turn out to be a little bit more of talking sessions all the time, right? So is there anything else that we can do besides just sitting in front of a phone and just talking? Can we do something else, or do you have any tips for that?
Aiming at what? What would you like to achieve with these sessions?
Yeah, just what you would do when you were with friends normally. You would just go out for a walk maybe, and you would go places, right? So you would do more physical things. And now that we are on an online space, how do we, substitute that without just making it just talking and talking and talking?
What would you normally do? Like playing cards or something?
Yeah, we could, playing board games, for example.
I was thinking, but I don't know how feasible it is. But perhaps there is experience out there with people. You might consider playing cards because you just show your cards. Of course, you can also cheat. But I think it calls for creative solutions to think about playing card games, board games. Making music perhaps together is there's delay online, so it might be that the rhythm gets off track, but you could try. I've never done it, so perhaps it's nice just to try. It might be fun to do it, and you might find ways to set this up, and then we'll all learn from it.
Yeah.
There's a very, I mean, I'm known to promote day drinking, but
Oh God.
there is this app online called House Party, and it's basically you can do drinking games with your friends online, which is super interesting. I mean, it's lighthearted. I think it's a very creative way to get people together. I mean, I'm not promoting it, but
sure.
you know,
But it's gaming.
but it's
together.
gaming. It's a form of gaming, and I feel like one thing it is also to remind yourself that there are bigger things to talk about than just what is currently. I mean, I'm not saying Corona is not big enough, but it's sometimes nice to think about other things than just the constant worry that everyone is thinking about. It is sometimes just talking about, hey, how's your dog doing? Asking questions and or even debating. There are online debating platforms which are super interesting. Online gaming platforms. People could join that, and there's a lot to talk about than just the current little bubble that we're all kind of stuck in.
Yeah. But like online gaming and things like that, then I would like to come back to the first message: structure your day.
Yeah.
So don't do that all day, but make appointments with friends. Let's work, let's study, let's do something, and then work, and then after dinner we're gonna hang out online together because it's nice. Then you've done things, you feel happy with it, and then you can have fun together. Go to bed in time.
Exactly.
Again, the other one, the side gabers are important. Getting up early at normal times, go to bed at a normal time, sleep, don't drink too much, don't do drugs, things like that, because you get bored. So of course, but that's not going to help you in the long run. So, and then you have a reward for your working, and it's fun. You can share what did you do today, and let's play a game, let's do something, and then at a certain time say, okay, it's enough for today. Let's stop now. Tomorrow or another day. Yeah.
But what I've also done is I've Skyped my friends, I've called my friends whilst I was studying, and we were like, let's study together. It's strange when you're studying online and someone else is studying and you're studying it's on call, but you're doing it together so you don't feel alone.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I guess that's really that's a very good tip, I would say. Yeah.
Looking forward to hear all these creative solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see, there was a question online saying, what advice can you give to staff trying to help students who getting used to the new way of learning? Maybe someone has an idea about that?
I think as a student myself, something I would say that the staff should also be, to provide some I feel like to reassure students that things will be fine. I feel like everything's been thrown at us and all the students are kind of not panicking, but everyone's confused as how to get used to the system. Most of some courses are using different kind of platforms for communication as well. It is to reassure students that yes, it will take some time, but it's super exciting. It is a different method of learning. It is also to provide students the sort of insight of this is a time for change. The structure, the institute is restructuring and is learning about how to adjust to such a change. And it's also I feel like this sort of transparency between staff and students would help both communities feel better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think staff is working very hard to set up new ways of learning and trying to do that online, and we give each other tips.
Yeah.
But one of the important things is, and that we always forget, from students, give us feedback.
Yeah.
What works? We can learn as a university community a lot about how can we perhaps move forward to more online learning. So this is a massive experiment in how could we do things better. So give feedback, students. How do you like this online teaching courses? What works, what doesn't work? We can learn from it.
I think also as a student council member myself, I know that my student council is working very closely to some of the people in the education program committee and trying to help each other. Like, this has worked for this, let's devise or experiment with this. And I feel like that kind of relationship is very important within such institutes when such a thing happens, because it allows open communication, increased creativity, and people take more initiatives. I feel like people are more ready to experiment as well with their education. So it's to reassure students, I feel like, is very important as well.
Another question from the chat I saw was about which context should UM students specifically reach out to if they are struggling with psychological issues right now? Is there an email, phone number that we have? I don't know who has an answer to this one, but it was asked, so I'm just putting it out in the group. So.
We're working hard on getting a central phone number so that students can call into that phone number and then get directed to the right care. I think it's still very important to know if you're in a situation in which I'm in a crisis or I can't take it any longer, that you first call the GP. And if you say, okay, I can wait a little bit longer, that you make an appointment with a UM psychologist if it's on short term, but it's not that different from what you would usually do. So you first call the GP or you make an appointment with a UM psychologist if it's not very urgent.
Okay, I think that's good advice. Yeah. Then, very big one actually, which we've already a little bit touched upon, was the social media and following it. Of course, we have more time to sit on social media as well, so we're basically always engaging with this news. And of course, a big platform is Sharing is Caring in Maastricht. Mm-hmm. And on this one, there's a lot of vitriol towards both sides, right? You have people that say, like, take your distance, social distancing is very important, and people saying, it's just a flu, it will get over. And you get this hate towards each other, a lot of disagreement at least with one another. So people, for example, standing in stores, basically, with a face mask, trying to take distance, and people laughing at them. Is there a right way to approach the situation with a kind heart? Like, should we laugh at these people? No, not at all. But should we also be critical about the situation? I don't know.
Well, for most, I would say show respect, because everybody is trying to adapt and doing their best. And we know people are different, people respond differently, and we know distress has its common things. But I think when people have the need to behave like this, just show respect. And some other people might be more relaxed about the whole thing. That's another way. So give people, be tolerant for all these different responses. That would be and show respect for each other. That would be my first response. And don't forget, this causes distress. I don't know if Koen told something about it, but it's normal to feel some fear. It's normal to feel some insecurity. It's normal also for structuring your day that concentration in times of change is perhaps more difficult. So set realistic goals. Don't try to study like you normally do. It might be, you need some time to adapt to it. I'm not going to write a paper, a brilliant paper for the Lancet, which brings me the Nobel Prize now, because it's turmoil. So set your goals realistically. And just show respect for other people, because that's where we started.
Exactly. Koen, do you want to...
Remember, anxiety is normal and is healthy. It's what keeps you alive these days. If you're a little bit anxious, that is good, because that keeps you from hanging out with lots of other people and getting infected. So a little bit of anxiety is fine.
I think that's also good advice. A little bit of anxiety is fine to have.
Sometimes anxiety can give you the little push forward that you need. Yeah. There's always a healthy amount of anxiety that people need, and there's obviously the unhealthy amount. But as you said, like, people should deal with this entire situation step by step. Don't force yourself forward and be like, I need to do this and that, and don't also become a couch potato. Yeah. Take things. Do something and take this as an opportunity to learn more about yourself. that is also what I would say.
Maybe that's also interesting then to go into that. Like, of course, have a rhythm. Wake up early. Go to bed on time. Don't do one thing every single day. That's a very clear message. But at some point, you're going to run out of books. You're going to run out of games to play. And then the very big one is boredom. It will at some point come. And how do we effectively deal with boredom in a way that will prevent, especially if we're going to go on for this for a few months more, maybe.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But how do we then deal with boredom?
I think
Well, you gave a
what
beautiful example.
Lisbeth has a good point. No, sorry, Lisbeth, go ahead.
Sorry. No, I was just going to say that I think it's very important that we start using our creative brain, because you say boredom. Yes, of course, boredom is there if you don't see any other possibilities. But let's face it, I think most people could really benefit from a good house clean. So clean your house, do stuff that you necessarily like leave to the last normally, but there are a lot of things that you can keep doing, but you just don't want to look at it. So I think if you look at it in a creative way, are open for new and different things, there's a lot to do. And plus, I think it's very important to not forget that we can still go outside. So if you say, I'm bored, go for a walk in nature. There are a lot of beautiful parks in Maastricht. You have a big nature park at St. Petersburg, so you can go for walks. If you're bored, the best thing not to do is Netflix all day then and sit on the couch. So that you activate yourself. If you stay positive and creative, I know for sure that you can go on for months doing new things and challenging yourself.
And don't forget, boredom is not necessarily bad. I think it's a very interesting phase that you can appreciate. And we're not often bored. I think being bored is a forgotten thing. I think it's good to be bored every now and then. And if you allow that to be, it'll bring ideas and it'll foster creativity. But allow you to yourself to be bored for a while. It's not a bad thing.
Okay, that's good. So what just been said was that allow yourself to be bored, is what Koen is saying. It is good to be bored sometimes. And also what Lisbeth was saying was more about do your chores. Maybe just actually clean your house for once, actually do your dishes. And if that is all over, go for a walk, because we are still allowed to go out, of course. And that's maybe a very good advice.
And boredom, of course. We all have a list of things that we think, I once want to do that, like you started up knitting. So there are all
I think it was you. I'm not doing knitting.
No, you might start doing it. So, but of course we have all these things. This book that you still wanted to read, the thing that episode that you wanted to see somewhere online, things like that, and make a list, because then you think, oh, I could do that tomorrow. Write it down, because then you won't forget it. And probably there will become there will be a list of things to do, even in 2 weeks, 3 weeks time, that you think, oh, that's nice to do. So it's also an opportunity to start to start up new things.
Yeah.
So to see this also as an opportunity.
Okay, so a question that we had from the chat was also, do you have tips on how to deal with anger if someone knowingly is irresponsible towards an endangered group, such as old people, I suppose, then?
I feel like when dealing with anger, I think the first thing you can do is, with respect, like approach the person and try to talk to them about what is causing them to act in a certain way, or why they're acting irresponsibly. And I think a lot of people very quickly jump onto being angry at one another and showing and displaying aggression. And I think at times like this, it's important to, like you said, respect one another and show kindness. I would say that's also one way to approach it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that helps, and realize that when people respond angry, that they might feel distressed, because why would people do that? So it's the stress in the other person. So
yeah, I think it's good. Yeah.
Think about that.
Another question from the chat was, how can we deal with the sense of guilt when being in a safe place and our loved ones being in a less safe environment? How do we cope with this? The coping mechanisms, maybe.
Try to make yourself useful from a distance.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Okay, so by going on WhatsApp and talking to them that way, or?
For example, yes. It's
Okay.
very classical, it's a situation that you see in people. Also, for example, people who have survived car crashes and other people haven't, and feeling guilty towards people that have been wounded or died. It's something that's very classical. and you can solve that by being active towards these people. Do something and that'll help, and it'll help
Okay.
them, and it'll help you.
Because that's also something I've been having with my grandma, for example. She doesn't have a smartphone, so it's more difficult to connect with her. So just calling is already probably one step further than not doing anything at all, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
Also, I would say sometimes reassurance helps. I feel like one should not start thinking about whether this is safer or this is not safe or whatever, because I feel like that causes, if anything, more panic and more disturbances. And I feel like one should assure yourself, like, hey, are you following some of the instructions or some of the advice that has been given by the WHO? Are you taking the safety precautions? Are you doing social or physical distancing? I feel like these things also matter, and that is how you create your safe space, because you're creating your safe space yourself. You're not, no one place is safer than the other. If you start thinking like that, then that's already unhealthy thinking. The best thing is to make sure that you can advise the other person, like, hey, follow this advice or this, and that can calm them down and make themselves feel better. And you can also start feeling better about yourself if there is a sense of guilt, because you can also help because you're basically helping back.
Yeah.
You're informing people, and information and distribution of information right now is very important. Sharing information is good because, like, it's sharing is caring, especially in a situation like this. So that's I would say that is also a good approach with the guilt that people are suffering right now.
yeah. Another question from the chat was, do you have any advice on how to convey the seriousness of the current situation to people in your immediate environment who don't think the situation is as serious?
I think this links back to a question even earlier. I think it is just having a talk. I think there's a lot of, I think there was a debate at one point whether the students should be allowed to go to university, and just sort of like, let's just quarantine the old people, the people who are at risk. And it's like, you don't know who's at risk. Right now, everything about coronavirus and like the situation is in its early stages of research, so we don't know a lot right now. There are changes, there are updates every single day that are coming through. So I feel like that could be brought up, that we don't know much and we're finding out a lot at a very rapid pace, and one should be mindful of this, of how quickly things are changing.
Yeah.
And I think conveying this message is, you can do that by being just a role model. When you're serious and you say, okay, I'm serious, it's up to you what you think, but I'm going to behave responsibly, and I take this serious. I think that's the best way to convey the message, that we should all be reasonable and be sensible about the situation. And there's no panic, there's nothing, but on the other side, there's enough reason to take this serious. So, and the best way to just be a role model.
Yeah, and then Lisbeth, you also wanted to say something?
I completely agree with Frank, what he's saying, because we have the tendency to instruct people of what they have to do. And for some people are allergic to that.
Exactly.
So instead of instructing people, we can inspire people, and we can show people how we do it and how we manage, and that we take it seriously, instead of going, hey, you can't do this and you can't do that, because that will also trigger people to do exactly the opposite. So I think, as Frank says, it's really important to just keep being a role model and keep inspiring people.
Yeah, yeah. That's good advice. Inspire people, do what you have to do, and don't just say things, but be the good one yourself. Yeah,
a role model.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think that we've covered most of the things. I don't think there are many big questions left to answer at the moment. So perhaps before we close off this whole the live stream, do we all have closing remarks? Like Frank, maybe you could start with.
Yes. Somehow I'm admiring how most people and many people are responding to this here in the Netherlands. I don't know the rest of the world, but there is no panic. We're not hoarding anymore, except for the toilet paper last week. We know that, and one of the other things is many people are reaching out and connecting, also online, colleagues around the world. So it makes me also a bit optimistic on how we're dealing with all this, and also compliments to how the university is doing this. I think it's going fine. So that's a remark. But let's be serious. It's serious, but no panic. We're
That's
doing
good.
fine. I think we're doing fine.
Yeah. Koen, do you have anything to say?
No, I just want to congratulate you guys with this webinar. I think it's an excellent idea to devote it to this subject. Well done.
Lisbeth, do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I can only agree with Frank again. I think it's very good. What we always see is that when something really bad happens, you have people that go to the bad side or see it very negative, but you always have this counter movement of positive things and of good things going on. And that's also what you see right now, that people really get the feeling like, hey, we're in this together. If it's shitty for me, it's also shitty for you, and that you can see that from each other. And that's what's giving me hope. And that's something good that we can take away and hopefully can keep without having a crisis, that we don't need a crisis to just come to the idea of, hey, we can also create a better world. And that's something that gives me hope in this situation. So I hope we can hold on to that.
Yeah, I think that's good advice. Do you have anything left to say, like final advice for students as a student yourself?
As a student myself, I think is to take things step by step. There's no need to panic. The university is posting all the relevant information online regarding your education, regarding what this university is doing itself. Everything will be fine. Things will go back to normal. Though things don't feel normal right now, maybe this is going to become a new normal. We don't know. Hopefully not. But it's also to really take things step by step. And also don't socially isolate yourself. I know a lot of people who are doing that. They've really closed themselves off because of the panic and the anxiety, and to experiment and be creative, to be honest. And I think it's also very important to think about the positive things which are happening, such as there's such a growth in the communal feeling nowadays. It's like we've really come down to like wanting to help one another. And I think, let's try to stay positive, take deep breaths, step by step, and stay hydrated,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the best we could do right now as students, to be honest.
Okay, then I think that only leaves me with a little wrap up of the whole what we've discussed in the last hour, which is that stay positive. I think that's the biggest one I've heard. But also stay creative, do new things, read a book, clean your room. Maybe that's a very important one. Stuff like this. In these times that we find ways to keep a rhythm, wake up early, go to bed on time, don't do one thing, just one thing, and be kind to one another, be patient with one another, and give people a role, like be a role model for others that are maybe not as aware of the situation as some others are. Which leads me to thank my panel here and also online. I think it was a very great discussion that we've had. For the students that are watching at the moment, always check the website, check the social media. We will be posting updates as we continue. And we will keep you up to date with the latest things, because the coronavirus changes every single week and the situation changes every week. So we also have to adapt ourselves. And I think that the university is trying its hardest to really get everyone up to date and up to speed. So take care and ask for help if you need it. And that leaves me with just saying goodbye. Have a great day, have a great weekend, and we'll see you another time.
Yeah.
Okay, goodbye, everybody. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.